Resident Evil 7, a very interesting take on the horror zombie genre, of which nobody saw Capcom producing before the E3 reveal trailer. The first-person nature of the game, as well as the extremely horrific atmospheric environment and lack of weaponry in the opening demo, garnered very much people's interest, and with the updates to the demo and other elements, the game got viral attention. And when the game came out, I think everybody read into and understood the general synopsis, but some of the more intricate details and niches may have gone unnoticed. And in this video, I'm going to be discussing the ending of the game specifically, and Mia and Ethan's eventual outcome. Ethan and Mia are two very interesting characters, to be honest, in Resident Evil's lore. Even though Ethan has such a minimal amount of lines, there is still a decent amount of detail about his character, and he's definitely one of the most interesting characters so far, as he has an infection like Wesker with the progenitor virus that gives him regenerative capabilities and more, but also on top of that, he's just a regular guy. That's why it's kind of interesting. Like, Wesker had the goal to infect himself to obviously gain powers. Spencer had the same. You know, there's a lot of villains throughout the series that basically do the exact same. They infect themselves with something, or they use bioweapons to basically gain an advantage. But Ethan's kind of a bioweapon like Wesker, just without the intention. He's not like Jill either, that was infected during the line of duty. He was just going to save his wife, and he never even knew he was getting into a BOW situation in the first place. Now, it's never actually said how you get infected by the mold fungi in the game. However, I will interpret it as being airborne, at least at a short distance, because of the fact that Evelyn's infection spread throughout the ship so quickly, as well as the fact that Ethan seemed to have been infected without actually ingesting any meat or water, and this was very much prominent from the fact that, well, he kind of got his hand stabbed into a wall with a screwdriver. His arm was then cut off. He picked it up, had a lengthy battle with his wife, which I'm assuming hurt him too, and he was losing blood this entire time. He then got assaulted by a big bear man called Jack with superhuman strength, I might add. While he's still bleeding out, he's then dragged, still bleeding out, you know, into a completely different area, into the main home, which, God forbid, it must have been about 30 minutes by this point. He's just chilling, and then he has his arm just stapled back on, and it's just all Gucci, it's all working. Now, this confused people at first, and it seemed like a weird video game gimmick, especially considering that Ethan didn't really show much pain to all of this. Like, he was actually pretty resistant. At first he showed some reactions, but with the stapling, and we're gonna get into this next part, when he had his leg cut off, he didn't even really show any pain. He just kind of grunted at it like, oh, I lost my leg, damn. Essentially, when he reattached this, it just kind of worked as well, like the staples, but without even staples this time. And it kind of seemed even more like video game logic until you got to the end of the game and started reading some of the documents. Now, everything here does actually line up with what Ethan is going through. Now, please keep in mind, although it says bacterium, you can see there is an asterisk next to that, and that's because in Japanese it probably didn't say bacterium. The word was more likely fungi, but it can be translated as many different things, but based on the context, it is more likely fungi. However, it looks like at stage 1 of infection, even when cutting off the limbs of infected, they were able to coapt their wounds within minutes. Now, coapt is the ability, in this context, put a limb back and just kind of like grind the flesh together, and it'll just reattach itself using the mold basically. And it's kind of a gross idea, but looking at Ethan, that is basically what happens, and I'm guessing that was what was occurring in the experimentation. They were stapling and doing other things with limbs just to see how far those regenerative capabilities went. And it's possible this is why Zoe knew what to do with Ethan, but you know, that's just mere speculation. Now, once you get to mid-stage infection, you start to have your thoughts become in tune with those of the E-series asset. Now, I'm assuming based on the various DLCs that we've seen and how things work in the game, that this is where, when you started hallucinating of Evelyn, you hit stage 2 of the infection. So when we started seeing her in the house and then towards the ship sections, etc., this is where the mid-stage infection had hit. Evelyn was basically trying to indoctrinate us at this point, and this was our last chance to fight back. So as you can see, if this state continues, you will lose all sense of ego like the Baker family did. Now after that is complete infection, and this is after every cell in your body has been taken over and you begin to lose your human form. So this is assumably what the mold are, and your physical mutations differ from case to case. Some mold will just look like regular humans, then we have the creepy crawly guys, but all result in him or her acquiring incredible physical strength. Now this complete infection stage can of course have very different consequences for each individual, and Jack just got massive amounts of regenerative capabilities, much more than anyone else shown so far. So you can chainsaw him down, you can hit him with the goddamn cure, you can just do whatever you want, but he's just gonna keep coming back apparently. Like, I don't even know if he's dead right now, to be honest. But this is where Ethan will be going into complete infection. Now, considering that Ethan has a very good synergy with the mold fungi, it seems, I'm going to assume that once complete infection hits, he doesn't transform into a mold, but instead he'll keep his physical form like the Bakers did. Now Mia is obviously still infected because we know the cure is pretty much useless unless you're intending to kill the person you're using it on a long-term infection. It's not really specified why Mia was not killed, but she is clearly still infected during the events of the game and the aftermath. So she's still at complete infection. We kind of already know what capabilities she has there, and Ethan also will either have the same capabilities or greater, to be honest, because he seems to be really compatible with the fungi. Now Mia is of course an operative of an agency that isn't exactly moral or legal, and Mia was working for them, so I don't exactly see her and Ethan getting the happy ever after ending. I'm pretty sure when that helicopter lands, a bunch of police officers are going to detain Mia for questioning, investigation. She'll be talking to the FBI, the NSA, etc. She's going to be in a very lengthy process. Maybe she'll get some, you know, free time if she cooperates. This is kind of getting into a drama series now with Mia, and that's interesting actually. But Ethan's kind of not done anything wrong, so he's just gonna be released. But infected, you know, that doesn't really seem right. He'll either probably be sent to a BSAA center like Jill Valentine was, or somewhere else, but this has the interesting implication that he'll eventually probably be trained. Now this could be a cool character to have and move forward with, not as a playable character anymore, but somebody to look up to, and it could basically be the second Chris Redfield with a little less character growth at the start and then a lot more later on. And that could be a cool way to spin his character, because otherwise there's only really two alternatives, and that is he becomes a lab rat for some nefarious organization such as Umbrella. And at this point we all know what happens when a character in Resident Evil goes off screen in such a scenario. They'll never return into the series or be mentioned ever again, because why do that? Just introduce some new random people instead. Or the other implication is they just let him go back into normal life while he's completely infected with the mold, which seems extremely irresponsible considering that he might be able to infect others. Regardless of the fate, it looks like Ethan is going to have some marriage counseling. However, considering that Mia did work for an organization that was fine messing around with children, implanting them and turning them into BOWs, there's all sorts of things that Mia has been complicit with, and even human and child trafficking, which she has been directly involved in herself. And so I don't know if Ethan, even if Mia for example got a plea deal, would be able to reconstitute their relationship properly. And so we have our latest episode of domestic issues with infected BOW superhumans coming up in Resident Evil 8. Jokes aside, it will be curious to see if Capcom will do anything with Ethan and Mia again. Of course, Resident Evil 8 will continue in the timeline and be a direct sequel to 7. This has been the franchise's staple since the start. If we would get any prequels or anything like that, it'll be through spin-offs and alternative titles. But it looks like we've got 2 infected superhumans out at large in the world, and this is basically the finalization and conclusion of the experimentation that was done in the Louisiana Bayou in Resident Evil 7. I guess you could say these are the 2 successful research subjects that all corporations involved in observations are very keen to see where they proceed into, because without a hive mind controlling Ethan or Mia anymore, they're kind of in a new territory, and so for research purposes, anything that now proceeds will be fundamentally interesting and extremely unpredictable. For example, it wouldn't surprise me if Mia or Ethan became a new hive mind, or if something radically different occurred due to the connection lost with the hive mind mother, but we'll just have to wait to see, won't we? Let me know what your thoughts are on these topics and all the things said below. I'm looking forward to you guys and your feedback, and just remember to slap that subscribe button, literally slap it, don't click it, slap it on your screen. Have a beautiful day, take it easy, and peace.